So welcome everyone. So today we'll be looking at strategic pivot planning. And this is just the perfect topic for now because of where the world is today in the world of business. And I'm actually looking very forward to the ideas that we're going to share today. And then without further ado, I would like us to go ahead and introduce ourselves and our businesses in the chat. So tell us who you are, what you do. So let's take a couple of minutes to do that. And also let us know what you expect today. All right, so we have Fumi from Lagos. Okay, that's the only one I'm seeing here for now. Okay, we have Temitope Telecoms in Lagos. We have Chidi Amazing, Realtor from Oka. Okay, welcome, Chidi. All right, keep going. We have Lincoln joining us from Liberia. Lincoln, welcome to the Business Masterclass. All right, so give me some idea about your expectations today. What's going on in your business at this time, and what would you like to work out with? John is also joining us from Liberia. We have Felix from Port Harcourt. Okay, and we have Watile from Namibia, Bayomi from Lagos. Ethel is a pharmacist. We have Thomas from Cameroon. All right, we have Ife. Ife is joining us from Lagos today. All right, and Ife says, I hope I should be able to reactivate my business after this session. Fantastic, I like that. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to happen. David Chwemeka from Abuja. So we have Hosseini Maruf from Lagos. Mwachiko Philip is joining from Enugu, is a medicine seller. Okay, Thomas is a lecturer. Lincoln from Liberia expects to gain some very great lessons, okay? Knowledge that would help you advance your business. This is helpful. Okay, Fumi, yeah, Fumi, this is really a very interesting one because most people in business, especially in this part of the world, are facing the same thing. Pricing fluctuations are unbelievable, all right? Yeah, so hopefully we'll cover that today. Bisset Chukura is joining from Zimbabwe, right? Recently started a company specializing in plastic packaging, all right? Okay, Felix is in banking. We want to know a better way of handling business. Very good. Babalola Sunday from Wari, Bumi pharmacist from Ibad. Watile from Namibia is into international development consulting and real estate. Okay, very good. Zion is joining us from Senegal and is into telecoms. Lara Waju from Ibad, Beatrice from Abuja, content creator and freelancer. Excellent. Okay, very good. All right. Okay, so there's one more thing. There's one more thing I want us to do to ramp up the energy in the room. And there's no better way to ramp up energy because we really want to go with some very, very powerful positive energy than to go the way of gratitude. All right. So what are you thankful for? What are you thankful about today? Right? Put it in the chat, whatever it is you're thankful for. I know we have had a very challenging year since January, but let's not focus on the difficulties that we've had within the year. So let's ramp up our energies with what we are thankful for. Okay. So go in the chat, tell me what you're thankful for. Okay. Thankful for life, thankful for life. Very good. Okay. And it would be nice if you're actually very specific. Very, very good. Gift of life and good health. Excellent. Most of us are very sorrowful today because of the Herbert Mwigwe experience. Okay, so thankful for life and hope that the year will end positive. Absolutely. Thankful for life. Thankful for family. Thankful for gift of life and health. Absolutely. Okay, FL. Thankful for gift of life and health. Grateful for family. Privileged to be connected. Yeah, same here. Same here. Thank God I'm still in business despite the situation. Absolutely. I feel you for that. Grateful for the gift of life and sound mind. Yes, Ayodeji. Same here. Okay. Thankful for the search for knowledge, which is light. Thankful for life and the opportunity to be part of this class. Absolutely. Thankful for strength. Excellent. Okay, David says, thankful that despite the challenges in the nation, I see hope that my vision and goals are possible. Fantastic. So we are all in the right place. Okay, so let's get started. As usual, I'm going to have this to be very interactive. So I would like this to be as very interactive as possible. So go ahead at any point to type a question in the chat or say something in the chat, and then Williams will monitor that and then relay that to me. And then we can always focus on what is very useful and very specific to you. And then part of making that practical is I usually want us to focus on you walking out of this session with something implementable. So we have a rule for those of you who are familiar with our master classes. And that rule is when you hear something that's very insightful, something that hits you at a very kind of subconscious or superconscious level, there is a question that I have taught you to ask. Because one of the things you don't want to happen to you is that you let an insight that could actually help you in your business sleep. Just let it sleep without acting on that. So can someone type in the chat to remind us what is that question that I've asked you? For those of you who have been attending our master classes, what is that one question you should ask? Anytime you hear something that's very insightful that hits you at a superconscious level, what's that question? So I'm looking at the chat. What's that one question you should ask? The question is, how can I make this actionable? All right. So throughout today, you are going to be hearing some incredible things. I'm going to be sharing with you some very deep insights that will resurrect your businesses. So if you came into this masterclass with an energy of a 1 or 2 concerning your business, how things are going in your business not too well, I promise you are going to leave with a 10-10, with an energy and with insights of a 10-10. And so what I want you to do, anytime you hear an insight, you get an insight, 2 things you should do. Write it down, type it in the chat, write it in your note. Second thing you do is to ask yourself, how can I make this actionable? If you do not ask yourself that question concerning the insights that you're getting, chances are that you will lose that insight. All right, so based on the things that you have said that you want to learn, so I'm just going to go ahead and then start. All right, so this is about me. So my name is Ogbo Awoke Obo, and the highlights of my career include my time with Shell as a remote sensing surveyor. From Shell, I moved on to Chevron when Chevron offered a better package that I couldn't say no to. So I said bye-bye to Shell and went to Chevron. And in Chevron, I worked as the GIS team leader. And my role was to lead the team that provided special information that allowed engineering, allowed environment, allowed the pipeline engineers to do their work, providing this special information. And then after 6 years with Chevron, Shell came back and made a counter offer that was too good to be ignored. So I left Chevron and went back to Shell. And while I was in Shell, I was on a project visit at Netherlands when I asked myself the question that changed my life. And that question was, yeah, it's true. This career, this work I'm doing in Shell is very good. It's very promising. It has so many perks. But what were really the 100 things I wanted to accomplish before I died? And by the time I made that list, I looked at in what way could I make my life more impactful, and especially in Africa. So, well, by the time I looked at the list, it was very clear to me that while Shell was a very excellent career, it was not going to allow me to express the full potential that was in my soul. So I left Shell and started consulting. I have done some work with the Stanford Graduate School of Business. They have an initiative they call Stanford Seed that some of you have been part of. So I have worked with Stanford for 6 years as their business advisor. I currently adjunct with Lagos Business School and China Europe International Business School. So I'm really very committed to raising entrepreneurs in Africa, starting with, of course, myself, so I practice the principle that we call Ezra principle. You first of all study it, you do it yourself, and then you teach others to do it. So often the things that I'm teaching you are things that I am doing, things that I'm actively developing, or things that I've actually done already. That's what makes what I do very, very different and practical. I'm also very passionate about the plight of the male child, especially in our continent. So that's a little bit about me. So today we're looking at strategic pivot planning, and my team just made me aware of the AFCON final match that is going on this evening. So we will end on time for you to go watch the matches. And so we may not be able to cover all that we intended to do today because of the match coming in. Not that I care very much for that, but I would like to respect the interest, of lots of people, who want to watch the match. But we will cover as much as we can today. The question is, how do you navigate the uncertainty with a resilient business model? This is a very important question. This is a harnessing question for every business leader at this time. You are going to succeed, and you're going to go through the challenging times we have, whether it's in Cameroon or in Namibia or in Liberia or in Ghana or in Nigeria or Zimbabwe. These are all the countries represented here. I think someone also joined from Kenya. And all these countries are having economic challenges. And then, as I'm going to show you very shortly, you will be amazed at the opportunities, the incredible opportunities that actually are present right now in all these countries and then available to us as business owners. So how do we navigate uncertain times with a resilient business model? So the key word is resilient business model. And then for some of you who've been attending our master classes, you're already familiar when we say a business model, you're already familiar with what it is. The problem that many of us here are having, and many of us are having in our businesses, the major problem is that our business model is not resilient. And Fumi did mention something about the fluctuations in prices, and then the difficulties that we are having in currency devaluation, the challenges that we are having in the supply chain dynamics that are real to us today because of where the world is. So the supply chain is very, very unstable, for many, many businesses. So now, if you do not have a business model that is resilient enough to face the challenges of the supply chain and to face all the macroeconomic challenges in your country, then that business is at risk. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The key words are resilient and business model. And then business model, for those of you who are joining us new, a business model is very simple. A business model has three things and three elements. A business model describes how you create value for the customer, all the processes for creating value for your customer. For some of you in manufacturing, those processes would include things like procurement of your raw materials. It will include the production, the transformation of those raw materials into the finished product. It will include how you market. It will include how you distribute those products. So that is the first part of your business model, how you create value for your customer. The second element of the business model is how you deliver that value. Okay, so some of you, for instance, have online stores, e-commerce stores. So your e-commerce store is a means, for instance, of how you deliver the value to your customer. Okay, so how you deliver that. The third aspect of your business model is how you capture value. That is dealing with the issues of payment. And I think I would say kudos to the fintechs in Africa, because in recent times, in the past 3-4 years, there's been massive developments in the fintech in Africa. So it is possible for someone in Cameroon to buy a product from a seller in Nigeria. It's easier today for a customer in Nigeria to buy goods from a seller, from a merchant in Ghana, and not worry about the currency exchange and then the transactions. But 10 years ago, it was literally impossible to buy things online. If I wanted to buy something from Namibia or from Tanzania, 10 years ago, it was virtually impossible because of all the currency transformations that have to go to make that transaction possible. Okay. So that is what a business model is. And so the question is, how do you make it resilient enough that it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy, your business will survive? Okay, so there are three premises. But before then, we have these outcomes. All right. We may not be able to cover that today, but one of the major outcomes is to talk about the business model, which I just highlighted. And then, so one thing is to be able to talk about them. The other thing is to be able to actually have your business model mapped out on paper, mapped out on a napkin. I'm doing something like that. I might get a chance to share that maybe after this event for a pivot, a new line of business model that I'm thinking about. And at some point, I'm also going to share with you, my personal digest of what's going on right now and how I'm going to move on or pivot from my coaching business to something that's more resilient. Now, I'll be sharing these ideas with you based on 3 premises. So the very first one is that whatever you are going through now in your business in Liberia, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in Namibia, in Kenya, whatever you are going through right now in your business is not new. In fact, I want this to sink in because the very next set of presentations will build on this. So please go to the chat and personalize it. Say, whatever I'm going through in my business right now is not new. So I'll just give you 30 seconds. Type that in the chat. Whatever I am going through in my business is not new. So I'd like you to affirm that very quickly. Okay, I'll give you time. Okay, so whatever I am going through in my business is not new. Very good, very good. Keep it going. I really like I want that to sink into our subconscious. Whatever I'm going through in my business is not new. You see, the major part of succeeding as a business leader is actually first 80% mindset. I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying right now. The secret to succeeding as a business leader is 80% mindset, if not more. I could actually say even 90% mindset. Then the other 10 will just be skills and activities. All right. So, but if you turn it around and then 90% are just activities and skills and things that you are doing, operations, and then only 10% mindset, that business will fail. And so this is why it's important, addressing the mindset is, and I really want you to come to the conviction that first of all, whatever you are going through right now is not new. You are not the very first business in Nigeria to go through that. You are not the very first business in the world to face a situation where prices are just irrational and where currency is, just going down so unpredictably. You are not the very first business in the world to face that. You're not the very first business to be in a conflict zone, in a war zone. No, you are not the very first. Meaning, the second premise is that businesses have survived worse possible conditions than what you are going through now. So I want that mindset also to sink in. Businesses over the history of mankind have survived whatever it is that your business is going through right now in your country. I want that to also sink, and I want you to also say that to yourself. Businesses in similar situation like yours have survived worst possible conditions. And therefore, number 3, then you can succeed, because it follows that if other people have done it, you too can do it. If other people have even started a business in the midst of an economic crisis and then run it very successfully, then you can do it. So I want these 3 premises to sink very, very well into your subconscious, because that's what's going to do the job. All right. Whatever you are going through right now, you are not the very first. Right. Other people have gone through it. It's not new. Number 2, businesses in similar situation as yours have survived worst possible conditions. And then you can succeed regardless. I have told the story of a client in a West African country that was ravaged by war. for over 10 years, claimed lives of so many people. And then they were chopping off people's limbs. They were recruiting child soldiers and things like that. And we have this client over there who at that time, they were running a bakery. And I'm already giving you some insight about resilient business models. These people were running a bakery in the midst of the war. Not one day did that bakery shut down. And then what he told me was they were even selling to all the different sides of the conflict. So they will go to one of the enemies, they open the gate for them, they'll drive their bread van into that place and supply, and they go right. They turn around and go to the other enemy and supply them. And they protected them because they were producing food, they were in bakery business, and then all those people needed the bread. And their business thrived, they expanded. I went to their bakery. I went to that bakery in that country, and it's amazing that even during the wartime, that businesses, a certain type of business can survive and do very, very well. So there is no condition that you find your business right now that you cannot succeed regardless, because other people have done it. Okay. So I want to introduce you to this model I put together on how do you exactly create a resilient business model in times like that. So it's called Shift, and you can take a screen capture. You can take a screen capture of that. This is what we're going to be working with, this framework. So S stands for survey the market trends. If you don't do this first and second one, every other thing you try to do in creating a resilient business model will fail, because the customer is the business, the market is the business. And so we often say, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the customer, okay? And then I want to say, don't fall in love with your current business model. I'm already giving you the number one insight. Don't fall in love with your current business model. Fall in love with the customer. So please type that in the chat. I want to make sure that that sinks. Don't fall in love with your current business model. Fall in love with the market, or you can put customer in a bracket. Don't fall in love with your current business model. Fall in love with the market, because I'm already showing you why businesses are not doing well, okay? Because you're so much in love with what you're doing, but that's not what the market is demanding. How will you succeed in that? Okay, like my team and I are in that process of also this shift model, assessing what is it that the market really wants. I haven't fully come to that conclusion, but it looks to me that the market in Nigeria right now is not a knowledge market. It's not a knowledge market. It looks to me, right now that it's not. So I'm in the knowledge business. I'm in the coaching business. So I was telling myself this same thing. Don't fall in love with coaching and consulting. Fall in love with the customer. Fall in love with the market. So that first thing is to survey the market trends. What are the significant political, economic, social changes happening in Liberia, happening in Nigeria, happening in all those places? Because see, most of us in this part of the world start our business and also try to run our business without insight. And when you are running a business without data and without insight, you have a big problem. From the beginning, your operations will be out of whack. And if there is a note I want you to make to yourself in doing business in these 2100s, it's that your business needs to be data-driven. Data-driven, your business model needs to be data-driven, number one. Number two, your business model needs to be process-driven. If your business model is lacking in these two elements, it's not going to be resilient and your business is going to struggle. So what are the things going on? What are the consumer preferences? What are their behaviors? What are the demographic trends? When I did this for my own coaching practice, I'm noticing a shift in the market because the business owners are actually busy trying to salvage their business, trying to make a profitability, trying to pursue margin. So, and even though the coaching is actually what's going to help them solve that problem, but I find that their emotional investments right now is very, very reactive as to what is happening. So I have to look at the behavior changes. I have to look at the fact that what people would normally spend, like some of you may have seen the article I put up a couple of weeks ago to that effect. All right, when we do our consulting and then we charge $10,000. There was a time $10,000 was 305. $10,000 was like 300 was like 3 million. Okay, at 305 naira to the dollar. Today, the dollar is 1,500 naira, and the same $10,000 that was 3,000, that was 3 million, is now 15 million. And then, how many small businesses in this country have 15 million naira to spend on consulting and coaching? So these are the realities. So you really have to put your head on the ground, when you're looking at, surveying market trends as it applies to your business. Whether you're running a retail pharmacy, you've got to actually sit down with your team and look at all these things. What's going on in the market? How are consumer behaviors changing as a result of the response to astronomical pricing? You may discover, if you are into health or you're into pharmacy, you may discover that there is a very strong trend, right now, of people going back to traditional medicine and herbs. Confirm in the chat if this is something that you've observed. Because you see, before you treat a particular illness, maybe somebody was saying something about some antibiotic. I forget the figures, forgive me. Some antibiotic that was something like 2,000 naira, but right now people are getting it like 30,000 naira. And 30,000 naira is like a minimum wage of people. So by the time you buy that, people think about buying that for 30,000 naira. They don't have that money. So what do? They revert back to the traditional medicine, and that affects your business in a certain way that you have to be able to. Does that make sense? Just type yes in the chat if what I said just makes sense. I've also noticed a trend of people going back to excavate the deities that their ancestors have worshipped and abandoned. They're excavating all these deities, like in a special part of Nigeria. I don't know if the same thing is happening in the other countries. Some other countries, you can type in the chat and let us know. But young people are going back to shrines and building their own shrines and all that, because they can't afford a coach to tell them, how to make money. So the H in the shift model stands for hone in on consumer insights. So this builds from the very first part, because you want to fall in love with the market. Don't fall in love with your product. Forget what you're doing. Don't be so product focused. You want to be customer focused. That is the number one secret to surviving this time. So, and that is the number one consideration when you're thinking about pivoting, because you don't pivot for the sake of pivoting. You pivot based on the insight, consumer insight. And it's consumer insight that can tell you, listen, this business you're doing right now, this is your coaching, consulting, this is your retail business and all that. You need to change the business model to reflect the new customer insight, or you need to even abandon it altogether. Is the consumer insights that will tell you that. All right. So the I now stands for iterating and innovating. So based on the consumer insights that you have gotten, you can now adapt your business model to it. You don't just jump into a different business, or you don't just come into the office in the morning and tell your team, okay, let's start doing this in a different way without the basis of insight. Now, the F stands for being flexible, okay, because things are these trends and these preferences are shifting, they're evolving. Some things are still evolving. They haven't gotten to where it is, like the pricing fluctuations in Nigeria now is so crazy. It's still evolving. And for some of us outside Nigeria, Nigeria has 36 states. And some states, some parts of the country produce certain kinds of food, and other states don't produce. So some states, or some people from different states, go to some of these states to buy food at wholesale and retail in their own states. But a week ago, a governor of one of the food producing states suddenly says, we're no more going to be selling food at wholesale prices to people from other parts of the country. So you have to monitor these trends and the implications. And then the federal government of Nigeria now release some grains from a strategic reserve. That is telling you something. That is telling you something. So you have to read all these things. And already there are a couple of protests that have erupted here and there that may suggest that that can become a progressive feature. So I'm just saying flexibility in your strategy is important. For some of us who run retail businesses, you have to watch those protests very, very carefully. Because once people's survival instinct kick in, they can do all things. So you might begin to think about the security of your business premises in a different way, because already what I have also found out is that in villages where stealing farm produce that are still on the ground, it was an abomination before, that you go to someone's cassava farm and harvest it, at night and steal it. But it's already happening. So there may be farming, there may be hunger, there may be all kinds of things. People's behaviors are shifting. They may be stealing, there may be crime coming, or things like that. So you have to think about all those things. Okay. And then the last T stands for tracking performance. All right. So you've got to have KPIs, you've got to have, your usual scorecard that you will use to manage your pivot. So this is the model. Next thing that we are going to do is to look at to test this shift model. So what I've done was to go back like 400 years before this time, and to, number one, prove to you these three premises. So I'm going to take you through 1700s, and it doesn't matter if you go back to 1500s or you go back to AD 1000, 1000s or 900 AD, these things have always been the same. So it is not better today. It's not better in 1724 than it is in 2024. That is what I want to prove to you, because you have to get that mindset right. So some people think, oh, things are bad now. Things are terrible now. Things are worse than they were in 1924. You have no idea what business owners, what entrepreneurs also went through in 1924. It is false. So let's start with 1700s, okay? So we're going to look at the key features that defined world history. Just a second, something is blocking my screen. Um, okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so we're going to look at 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 2000s, and then we finally end with 2100s, which is where we really are. All right. So business leaders in the 1700s, lots of things happened. You know, and for us in this part of the world, that was the peak of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. There was feudalism. And then we don't have the nation states the way we have them today. Like in Europe, you don't have the nation states the way you have them today. That was also the great year of the American Revolution. So in 1700s, there were political unrest, there were uncertainties, there were disruptions. Man, you didn't want to live in the 1700s. The slavery, the cruelty, and all these things, going on at that time. The world was in such a huge mess and huge chaos. So do you think that it's better? It was better then than it is now? No. Picture yourself as an African at that time. Picture yourself as even an American at that time when that revolution was going on. All right. So these were the features of the world then. So the things, everything we have today, we had it in 1700s. But then what I've actually asked myself, in my study, and let me say this offhand, business leaders. One of the things I have found very useful, if you look at my library over there, you can't see it. My camera is fixed on the laptop. So I have a section on history. I have books on Chinese and Indian philosophies. I have books on the ancient Roman Empire, ancient Rome. I have books on ancient Greece. So I have books on history. What I have found by studying history is, number one, nothing is new under the sun. And number two, people have overcome incredible odds in history, and they inspire me. As I study those people, they inspire me. So I have an internet archive as well, where I have downloaded, and when I say hundreds, if not thousands of books, books that were written in the 18th century, in the 19th century, in the 20th century, in the 21st century. And when I look at this, I'm amazed that some of these stories and some of these things that happened, that you could literally take the names of places today and individuals and insert in them, and you wouldn't tell the difference. Was it not King Solomon, the wise king, who said that there is nothing new under the sun? So what I asked myself was, okay, in the light of the tumultuous 1700s, what were the economic activities that thrived? Of course, because of the war, arms manufacturing. The other thing I find very, very interesting and curious, studying all those years, is that wars were a constant feature, and that wars, don't take it from me, wars are a part of a bigger economic system. It's been like that for as long as I have studied. Wars make profit, wars make money for people. The Ukraine war is a money spinner for the military industrial complex. The one happening in Israel and Palestine is not about those people. So I have found a curious feature how the same people who are funding one side of the war will also fund the other ones, like it happened in the World War. So, unfortunately, in the 1700s, arms manufacturing thrived very, very well. Then of course, trade and supply networks, businesses trading and supplying essential goods that had to do with wartime demands. Mercantilism is actually was also very popular at that time. That was when the nations believed that the more precious metals, gold and silver, and all that you accumulated as a nation, as a country, or as an empire, that the wealthier you were. And then it was also at this time that colonialism was peaking, was growing its roots, and then they were opening up agricultural routes. If you look at, for instance, in Nigeria, I don't know about Liberia and all that. Okay, Liberia was not colonized. I don't know about Cameroon, but I suspect it's the same thing. If you look at the Nigerian railway system, which was developed like in the 1800s, it was constructed solely to gather produce, specific produce. So it came from Kano because the groundnut was coming from Kano. Then there was some bit of it that came from Ibadan and Western Nigeria because cocoa was coming from there. And then it went through the Eastern Nigeria because that's where the British were getting palm oil, and then all the way straight into Port Harcourt, and then they took it out. That's mercantilism. And then, of course, the maritime industry, people were building ships, and then they were making lots of money. All right. So what to take out here is nothing is new, like we've said. And then secondly, entrepreneurs find ways in the midst of the confusion, in the midst of the tumultuous global economy, they still find ways by asking themselves what economic activities thrived. That's the last exercise that we're going to do today. So pay attention, okay? So in the midst of all the political uncertainties and unrest, you have to ask yourself as a business leader, what economic activities will thrive in this situation? And then I've already said, don't fall in love with your product, with your current product. Fall in love with the economic activities that will thrive where you have found yourself. Now we go to the 1800s. That was when the Napoleonic Wars happened. That was when the American Civil War also happened. And then that was when France and Germany fought the devastating Franco-Prussian War. And worst of all for us in Africa, that was when the scramble for Africa happened. That's when the European powers sat down in Berlin and then carved up Africa into what is known as African countries today, that has become like perpetual boiling points because these people just carved out of nowhere and then put people together who never were together, who up to today still don't want to be together. And then the resultant effect in Africa is that we keep fighting ourselves, different tribes and different just keep fighting themselves while these same Europeans are very, very busy taking our natural resources. And they even give us arms to kill ourselves and things like that. So, man, can you imagine that you lived in the 1800s when these things were going on? Can you imagine your life in that? So do you think that it was better then than today? Absolutely not. So there were political, economic upheavals. There were all kinds of instability everywhere. Okay. And then as well, that was also when the Industrial Revolution was born. And the question The question is, so what were the economic activities that people could easily have pivoted or people pivoted into, and they were still able to create incredible wealth in spite of what was going on? I hope you're getting what I'm trying to make, the kind of question I'm trying to get you to ask. So don't fall in love with what you're doing right now. Fall in love with what are the economic activities that align with the customer insight. I gave you a framework to be able to do that you could easily pivot into or incorporate into your current business model. Now, because if you are following the current downstream, you spend less energy and less friction than if you're trying to move uphill. And so how do you adapt your business model to encounter less friction, but to thrive in the current realities? And so businesses that thrived in the 1800s include shipping and maritime, manufacturing and supply chain, obviously because of the Industrial Revolution. And this was also when banking and finance, made their incredible debut, because the industrialization and the global trade required more financial transactions. It required capital flows. It required, that industries were funded and all that. So the bankers, just stood to do this. The textile industry did very well, because if you remember when we were in primary school and they taught us about primary school, they taught us about Industrial Revolution, or maybe something I read from my father's books, Makers of Civilization. I think I read about Industrial Revolution there. It looks like the textile industry had a lot, to do with it. So the textile industry was very, very viable and profitable in the 1800s. And most importantly, railroad and transportation. Okay, for moving the goods that were being produced, connecting different regions, facilitating economic growth. So people who were into railroad and transportation at that time made a kill. And then if some of you may have watched The Men Who Built America, you will see some of this in it. So a lot of money was made in steel, and then in construction industry, and then in railroad. I'm trying to remember the guy, who pioneered railroad in America. He made a kill, and I think his family is still very wealthy for it today. And then we now come to the 1900s, for goodness sake. 2 world wars, my God. You didn't want to live through those world wars. You didn't want to be a German at that time. You didn't want to live in the UK. You didn't want to live in America at the time. And then, of course, they also carried some of our people, some of our ancestors, from here to go fight. I think I still remember a few people in my village, who used to tell stories about going to Burma, to fight and something like that. So I think the colonists also recruited some of our people. So the 1900s were very, very tumultuous. Very, very tumultuous. Now, one thing I want you to notice, whether we're talking about 1700s or 1800s, or like we're discussing 1900s right now, you will always see 2 things. There's crisis, there's opportunity. But the mistake that we make, which is still a mindset challenge, the mistake, if you don't get anything out of today's session, I don't want you to walk out with that mindset of focusing so much on the crisis, because that is directly a sin against entrepreneurship. So if there's number one sin of entrepreneurship, is being so overly focused and overly overwhelmed by the crisis that you don't even have time to think about the opportunities. So I want everyone here to leave this place thinking opportunity. My goodness. I mean, if you start talking about the problems in Nigeria, okay? If you start talking about the problems in Nigeria today, my God, you will start talking about it, you will sleep, you wake up, there's a lot more, you haven't even scratched it. Are you going to be talking about the kidnapping? I saw one that happened just a few days ago They kidnapped people in the whole bus and left a little girl, a little child. I don't know how many of you saw that video. They took her parents, killed the driver, took everybody in the bus into the bush, and then left a little child, probably like an 8 or 9-year-old girl. Is it the one you will talk about? Or are you going to talk about this government? Or are you going to talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria? Or are you going to talk about the currency? Which one will you talk about? Or are you going to talk about the purchasing power that is going down? Which one will you talk about? But that's the sin I don't want you to commit, and that's the thing I don't want to commit. To be focused as real as these things appear. If we, as business leaders on this call, focus more on this crisis, then we will miss the opportunities, because it is impossible to focus on crisis and opportunity at the same time. At any time you're thinking about one, the other one is dead. So always remember that. And anytime you're talking about one, you are not thinking about the other one. And so one of my well-known quotes is that you cannot complain and create at the same time. So that's why I'm presenting these things in this way. So in the 1900s, there were all kinds of horrible things, the horror of war. And that was the time we had the likes of Stalin, we had the likes of Mussolini, some of these people who killed people. And then there was this leopard, this king of Belgium, who killed over 20 Congolese people. This was a horrible time to be alive. This was horrible. That was also at the thick of apartheid in South Africa. Horrible. And then even in America, segregation. So there were bathrooms, for white people, and then bathrooms for Black people. And woe betide you if you're a Black person and then you go to urinate where in a place that was designated for white people. These were the features of the 1900s. So you cannot look back and say it was better in those days than today. But what were the economic activities? The war industries, of course, as usual. The agricultural sector, which is also what I'm noticing about the time but I don't want to preempt that. But agriculture is going to make a very huge debut. In fact, it's making a huge debut right now. Who would have thought that one avocado pear in Nigeria will sell for 1,000 naira? If they told you that one even 5 years ago, you said that the person is crazy. Who would have imagined that one African star apple, Abalomo, one would be 200 naira because I bought 200 naira? Who would have imagined? So can you imagine that literally if you have a tree of avocado, can you imagine that if you have 3 trees of African star apple, you can literally pay your children's school fees? So look for the opportunities, not the crisis. Then it was in 1900s that the opportunities for automobile engineering, that's when Ford created the mass production, the assembly. That's when it came. Tens of thousands of jobs were created. Okay, and then ancillary businesses like gas stations, because you have to to fuel the cars, repair shops, roads, and all that. It was in 1900s all these things happened. Okay, that was also the year that oil and energy took up everything. Aerospace and aviation. These were 1900s. Crisis mixed with opportunity. Business model that is resilient. For a business model to be resilient, you have to understand the prevailing challenges and then ask yourself, what are the economic activities that are viable? And then you don't fall in love with your products, you don't fall in love with your current company, you have to be willing, have the mindset to, if you have to go to work on Monday morning and cannibalize everything based on this insight, you really want to do that. Then enter the 2000s, okay, the 2000s. So that one is still very fresh in our memory. September 11 changed everything. It changed so much globally around the world. I still remember at that time, for a lot of people who were born after that, they have no idea that there was a time that you literally, they check in your bag, you take your boarding pass, and then you just walk into the plane. Many people have forgotten that there was a time that life was like that. People who were born after September 11 don't know what air travel, just how convenient it was before. Then the Iraqi wars, was the weapons of mass destruction or no weapon of mass destruction. Then the 2008 global financial crisis, all kinds of things. That was also when social media and smartphones that look like they're ancient, because we are so used to it that we thought that it's always been there since Adam and Eve. It was just in the 2000s, Arab Spring and things like that. What were the economic activities that thrived at that time? Of course, that was when technology and e-commerce, boomed. Amazon just came from nowhere in 1996. And then by 2000s, this was a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Alibaba, Apple, technology and e-commerce, and financial services and banking. Okay, telecommunications also were booming. I still remember even here in Nigeria, in 2000, Obasanjo's government, when Ernestine Dukwe came to lead the GSM revolution in Nigeria. And then all of a sudden, people who, telephone then in Nigeria before 2000 was a status symbol. Not only was it very expensive to get the landlines at that time, because if you were to get a telephone landline, you had to pay a hefty sum of money. It was 250,000 naira at the time to get a telephone line, which, as of the exchange rate then, was an equivalent of, come to think about that, is crazy. That was like $25,000. And then at some point, it was actually like $50,000, because there was a time that the naira and the naira was actually stronger than the dollar. So imagine paying $25,000 to get a landline. So it was way out of the reach of most people in Nigeria, which was why a serving minister in Nigeria famously said that the telephone was not for the poor. And all of a sudden, since telephony started in Nigeria, since Nitel was established in Nigeria sometime in the early 1970s, up to 2000, Nigeria did not have more than 400,000 telephone lines. Then all of a sudden, the GSM revolution happened, and boom, today, every single person, children, adults, every single person has a smartphone. So there were difficulties at the time, but all these opportunities were going on. And of course, cyber security, all right, became important. Now, so I want to give room for interaction. Williams, if there's any question or comment that needs my attention in the chat, you can also say that. But what I want us to do, by way of, so what I want us to do by way of coaching, and then just making sure that what we've been doing has been sinking. I would like us to do it for what we have just done for the other years. I would like us to do it for 21,000. Oh, 21,000 actually. Okay, that's going. Actually, let's do it for 20,000. We are still in this is 2024. So we're looking at 2024, okay, plus. All right. It looks to me like 2024, for some reason, is such a defining year. There's so much going on. All right. So, what are we going to? Okay, so if we're going to do that same exercise, because we are in 2024 plus, okay, it's still 2000s, but there's a whole lot going on in our world today. So I'd like us to list it. What are the features in our world today that business owners should be cognizant of? So you can actually put that in the chat, or Williams can unmute you and then you can talk about it. And so let's capture that. What are the features? So for me, I've actually put the new world order here. So let me give examples. For instance, I'm seeing a lot of geopolitical reconfigurations. All right. So for instance, BRICS, and it looks to me that a new superpower might be rising. I do not know, but what do you think? What are the features of this 2024? You can also look at it from your own perspective, the perspective of your country, the things going on in your country. So another way to look at this question is, what are the PEST, P-E-S-T, okay, social, political, economic, social, cultural, technology? What do you see? Looking at the chat, you can also unmute and speak. Okay, uncontrollable inflation. Okay, inflation, AI, emergence of China. China, very true. Okay, what else? Do you think that transhumanism? Okay, transhumanism. I'm also seeing a lot of sexism, LGBTQ, and all that and all that. What else? Online schooling. All right. So online schooling, yeah, Ole Makbajo, yeah. I would actually put that as, okay, online schooling. And in fact, we can actually see that as broader. We can actually talk about it as education. Education is going to be, I see education not being what we think about it. So how do we put it? Like education, the way we educate these days, I see that changing. All right. So someone says climate change. Now I'm going to put that in, I'm going to put that in, I'm going to put that on quotes. Food scarcity. Okay. Has anyone also seen anything about massive immigration worldwide? Does that make sense? There's a lot of immigration going on. Emergence of China. Okay. Less barrier in language. Okay. Borderless education. Education. The school system as we know it is likely, okay, brain drain is part of the massive immigration. Aha. I agree with you, Thomas. I think there's going to be a lot of political, and I see that being set up in Nigeria. There's going to be a lot of political, how should I put it? Rebound saying like rebounding. Okay, whatever, you know what I'm talking about, you know. It's very, very likely that most of the colonial boundaries in Africa is going to change. Okay, base metals, okay, for clean energy. Clean energy. All right. Okay, yeah. Remote work is a major, major one. Somebody was just telling us this evening that many many companies in Lagos now ask their people to just come um, 3 times a week, 2 times in a week, and all that. All right, very good job. All right. So based on this, and then based on everything you've looked at tonight, what business model, what kind of business models, given all these things going on in 2024, and from everything you've heard from me today, what kind of business activities or economic activities or business models do you think will make sense right now in 2024? What insights are you, what kind of business activities will make sense? Me, I think that agriculture and agro processing, I think that medicine will always make sense. Okay, health. So I think that food, things related with food will always make sense. What else? Tech businesses. Because of AI and all that. Services. If you just, what kind of services? If you can, green energy, all right? So for us here, okay, food business. So if we here are kind of talking to ourselves, logistics, okay, if we are talking to ourselves, mental health, very, very true, Taiwo, because a lot of people, you know, recently, I'm seeing 14-year-old having stroke. I was shocked. And in fact, I saw a 2-year-old, a woman, no, not 2 years. Yeah, but 2, 3-year-old having stroke. Never heard about that in my life, you know. So people are under serious, intense, challenges. Private security makes sense. And I think that digital security, okay, is that the one you call cyber security? All right. So I have a friend who is in cyber security. He's extremely busy. Okay. Coaching. Okay. Coaching. And someone says, Kate says music recording. Okay. All right. Because people want to kind of cool off. Okay. So these are the exercises that I would these are the exercises I would like us to, go back, do with your team. All right. Do this with your team using the framework which you already screenshot, and then using the insights you have gotten from all these conversations we've had. And then I would say, like we normally say in those days, that whenever we finished debating in primary school in those days, they would say, I hope with these few points of mine, I have been able to convince you and not confuse you that whatever you are going through in your business right now is not new, okay? That businesses have survived worst possible conditions, and that everyone here can succeed regardless. And as an offshoot of that, to say that do not be overly focused on the crisis happening in your country, the secret to resilient business model is to ask yourself, how can I thrive in the midst of these challenges? And then don't forget, do not fall in love with your product. Fall in love with the market. Right. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes, like 10 minutes. By the way, what we're going to do, and Williams, you can actually set that up. What I would like to do is for some of you who will need help to implement this in your own business, to take you through how you can process pivoting, where you are right now and how you are going to build a resilient business model. So what I'm thinking is that we can spend my calendar is free for the next Saturday, or if we prefer, we can actually do a Sunday like this. And then we have 4 or 5 straight hours doing the exercises and then speaking to your specific businesses. So we can do that a smaller group. Yeah, so we can do that. And you can have that session with us, for just a mega 50,000 naira, which is what's 50,000 naira now? Like $50. What a shame. It's like actually $30. All right. So we can spend time, and then if you need that help, and I think I can do that for 10 people. So we spend all morning. We can always agree with you what time would be best, so we really spend time, do it practically for your business. So I think I can take 10 people, who want to do that. And so if you are interested in that, please just type in the chat right now, your name, just 10 people. And then Williams, you take note of that. And then we can work with you within the week to know what time we can actually have a practical extended time, like 6 hours, with 10 of you, talking specifically about your own particular business and then implementing this. So just type your name and then your number on the chat, and then Williams would take that, and then we can coordinate with you whether we'll do it Saturday morning or Sunday evening. All right. So this one is diving deeper for your own specific company. Okay. So while you're doing that, what questions do you have? Does anyone have questions on what we have done today? And so I'll be very happy to take it at this time. And then, by the way, on that Saturday, when I'm working with you, I will also share with you what I have done, how I'm processing a pivot from my coaching and consulting business to manufacturing and agriculture, and why. And then I will share the template that I used to do that business model. All right, so any questions? Okay, you're just like 30 minutes away from your Nigerian match. Okay, so let me see what you have. I think there's a question. Actually, if you have a question, you can just unmute. Okay, Lincoln says, is it possible from Liberia? Absolutely, because it's going to be virtual. It's going to be very, very virtual. Okay. What other question do I see here? Okay, let's see. All right, so please, I see a couple of names here, make sure you put your number, your WhatsApp number, so Williams can reach you and then give you the payment information. And then maybe create a WhatsApp group that we can start communicating before that time. Okay. Yes, oh, yes, it's possible from Cameroon, Thomas. Absolutely possible. All right. Okay. Fumi asked, what is the best way to monitor the trends? So you have what you call environmental scanning, Fumi, when we are doing strategic planning. And in fact, that's also, it's good you mentioned that. And Williams, take note, we do practical environmental scanning. This is one of the questions I think we should answer. So there are different tools that we use for environmental scanning, and one of them is the PESTEL, which I've actually talked about. All right, so you're looking at political developments, you're looking at economic developments, and then there's a whole lot of it. We have a scoop in Nigeria right now in terms of monitoring these trends. So then you have social-cultural, what's going on with somebody actually mentioned divorce over there. What's happening socioculturally? How are attitudes to marriage shifting? How are attitudes to parenting shifting? How are attitudes, teenagers, shifting? What's new? I'm shocked that, because I work with young people, that 14-year-olds are taking their lives. So those are the sort of things you monitor. Some of them come from newspapers. A lot of scoop, comes from online, just listening online to brands online. A lot of it also comes from competitive intelligence. A lot of it comes from watching also what's going on. There's certain things that I look for, and certain places and certain news that look unrelated. Like, I'm not a news person, but when I heard about the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin, I stayed awake. And I watched it for more than 2 hours. It started airing here at 12 midnight. I stayed awake and watched the entire thing, because that's how, I get all these things. So we will look at environmental. We will not just talk about environmental scanning. When we meet on Saturday, we will actually do it, for your specific businesses. So it's going to be a coaching style, so that you can actually work it out in your business. Like I'm always implementation based, not theory based. Okay. So that's looks like the only question I'm able to take right now. From what we learned today, I'm sensing it is possible that these things can be applicable in our individual careers. Oh yeah, of course. Of course, because you have to look at the careers that are in demand. You have to look at how these things are shifting and what likely careers, because how you can make career transitions. Nobody says that because you studied history, you must die with history. You might discover that from the way things are going, if China becomes like the new superpower, if the influence of Russia continues to increase in Africa, especially because of what has happened along the Sahel region, Niger and Mali, Burkina Faso have formed very, very strong alliance. They are leaving ECOWAS. Morocco is promising them a corridor to the Atlantic. These things mean a lot. These are very strategic level things. So I'm going to be asking myself, for instance, if China is going to become powerful, 1.5 billion people, and if Russian influence is going to grow in the Sahel, in Africa, guess what? Yeah, I can learn Chinese. I can learn Chinese. I can learn Russian, and that puts me ahead. So it definitely affects your career. Don't fall in love with what you read in the university. Okay, and I'm a very, very perfect example. I studied zoology. That's what zoology. That's what I read in the university. 1988, I graduated, but I've never used it. I didn't fall in love with zoology. I like it, but I fell in love with, opportunities, to serve. So I've done everything but work with my zoology certificate. So that applies absolutely. Okay. All right. So our last ritual, Please type in the chat, what was your aha moment today? What was your core insight? What's your key takeaway? What made your evening? Just being part of it. That's usually our last ritual. And then after that, we can close the room and then we can tell you how to access the recording for the replay. Okay, so please don't leave without telling us what's your key insight today. What was your aha moment? What made this evening for you? What made it worthwhile? And I noticed some people have phone numbers without putting their names. Williams, I hope you're able to catch it before we yeah. So Taiwo, okay, you have your name there, you have your number there, but you need to write out your full name so that
Yes, I got them.
okay. Pat says fall in love with opportunities. We're talking about aha moments. Very good. Ne says don't fall in love with your current business model, fall in love with the market. Excellent. Okay. Ike says possibility for world power changing hand. Very good. Kingsley, nothing is new under the sun. Focus on the opportunities, but not the crisis. Very good. Ethel, I can succeed irrespective of the country's inflation. All right. Olema Badu, I can't complain and see opportunities at the same time. Absolutely. Kate says resilience as a key factor. Yep. Okay. Ambassador Jerry, don't be too concerned about the crisis. Be concerned about the opportunities. I love it. I love it. Okay, Maruf, there are hidden opportunities in the midst of challenges, and that's where I want everybody to focus on. They say in Nigeria, they say wahala no dey finish. Okay, you can talk about it all year. It won't finish. 31st December, there will still be more wahala. There are still some coming that you have not. Don't focus on them. Okay, Kingsley says, don't look at the economic situation, look out for the opportunity. Very good. Okay, Binta, don't fall in love with your business model, fall in love with your customers. Very good. Yeah, Shegu, focus on the opportunity, not the problems. Very good. Okay, sharpening my understanding crisis of a profit. Very, very good. Okay, if others have succeeded, I can succeed, I will say. David says, whatever my business going through is not new. Very good. I can't complain and create at the same time. Excellent. Excellent. Bumi says you can't complain and create. Very good. Very good. Neo Yemi says we need to evolve as the world is evolving. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. I'm, very, very thankful and really excited, about the energy. I told you that if you were coming in with 1, you're going to leave with 10. And then looking at the things that you're going out of this masterclass with, that is fantastic. All right, so I want to thank all of you for spending this time with me. And then more importantly, my gratification will come when you've actually applied these things and gotten a result, and then you come back to tell us about it. And then we'll let you know when the masterclass is. And then for those who have put their names for an extended time with me, Williams will get back to you and then let you know how to be part of it. So I love you all. And then you have a wonderful evening. Take care when you're watching the Nigeria Cote d'Ivoire match. Take care of your blood pressure and don't take it too much to heart. And then whatever happens, keep showing up because you have no idea what's coming your way next. And I will see you really, really soon. Take care, everybody.